women rule the world, please, brother, shut up. If we let them rule the world, it wouldn't just be a better world. And you fight me and you lose, and then you go home. Then you go home. Boys and boys, we're back. The drought has ended. It is time for another UFC numbered event. Let me pull up the Tapology here. This card was getting a lot of scrutiny, and I understand why now looking at it. I mean, this is low-key kind of like a boxing card. They slip a lot of these easy fights and like really one-sided fights, hoping or knowing that you're not really going to care. And you'll see why if you look at these records. So we're going to go down all of the fights all the way up to the main event, and we'll get my predictions. On the last fight night with Gamrot and Saul Khalid, I went 5 out of 6 on Tapology. The only one that I got wrong was the one that I hedged or followed off of from none other than MMA Guru. Guru, you were wrong, bro. Dang bastard. All is well though, because new week, new fights, and you are going to want to tune in with the first fight featuring Mikbek Oralbai. If you don't remember, that is the Neanderthal-looking dude from Kyrgyzstan. And he is going to be fighting Jeremiah Wells, who is 13-4. He's a heavy favorite at -600. And obviously, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to pick Oralbai KO round 2 for that one. Let's skip to later in the card. We have Vicente Luque versus Tresean Gore. Now, Tresean Gore is good, but his record right now is 6-4. Almost even win-loss record. He's going up against Vicente Luque, who is a vet. But surprisingly, he's younger than I thought. I thought he was like 36, maybe nearing 40, but he's only 34. I'm going to pick Luque. I don't see Tresean Gore necessarily being or showing any threat to Vicente whatsoever. But if either were to win, I think it would certainly be a decision. Next, Dante Johnson versus Eric McConaughey. This one's pretty easy for me. I'm going to go with Johnson KO round 1. This is another one of those one-sided fights. He's 8-0 versus McConaughey, who's 11-4. Now, two interesting stats. Dante Johnson is 27, Eric McConaughey is 36. Dante Johnson is 5'8", and Eric McConaughey is 6 foot. He's a short middleweight, but I think at this level, it shouldn't be too much of a problem, especially considering he's 8-0. After that fight, we have Charles Johnson versus Eduardo Chapoline. Eduardo is 15-2. He's coming from the Contender Series, and his last win was via decision against a guy that was 7-1. Now, something tells me that this will not be a fraud check. I think there's something that the UFC sees here that might happen, which is a KO or a very dominant victory in Eduardo beating Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson he kind of flip-flops. He wins, loses, wins, loses. It seems like they have some trick here, or they see something in this kid to where they want to put him up against Charles Johnson. I put it down as a round 2 KO. Next, Chidi Njokuani versus Joel Alvarez. He is a moderate favorite, and I picked him. Joel Alvarez is. He's 23-4. Chidi is 25-12. Similar stats. I put this one as KO round 2. The next one is, in my opinion, a lamb to the slaughter type situation with Edson Barboza versus Esteban Ribovics. Edson Barboza, he's a vet, he's good, but he's also 24-14, and he lost his last 3. And he's 40 years old. So that kind of tells you what you need to know. Whereas Esteban is 15-3. He did lose his last one against Gamrot via submission, but is nasty, especially if you watched him versus Elvis Brenner and Zell Huber. I thought he got a finish against one of them, if I'm remembering correctly. It was some elbow in like round 1 or something. It was nasty, but I guess they just survived it. He's a heavy favorite at -400. I agree with that. I put Ribovics KO by round 3. I think the fight's gonna go. I don't think either of them are too aggressive, and I don't see them being too aggressive towards each other, seeing how they both know that they are a knockout threat and they are nasty on the stand-up. And so I think they're gonna kind of go tit for tat a little bit, go back and forth. They might catch each other, but in the end, it'll either go later rounds to KO in favor of Esteban, or it'll go to a decision. Right after we have a 9-1 Mansur Abdul-Malik versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Now, this is another one-sided fight with Mansur being negative 550. And he is 28 years old. Dustin Stoltzfus is 16-8, with his last two being a loss. And so I picked Abdul-Malik by KO in round 3. Dustin Stoltzfus' two last losses isn't anything to be shunned at, though. He did lose to Ruziboyev and then Kevin Gastelum right after. So, I mean, he's fighting well-known names. But, yeah, I just think that Mansur has a good threat, both in the KO and the submission. Next, we have Jalen Turner versus Cowboy Fernandes. I didn't watch too much of Cowboy Fernandes. I don't think I've ever watched him, to be honest with you. But Jalen Turner is nasty. He has disgusting range. They have pretty similar stats, except that the height difference. Fernandes is 5'9", Jalen Turner is 6'3", and I feel like every Jalen Turner fight, for the most part, comes down to his mental state at the time. He is so nasty, and when he turns it on, he is just on. When he knows how to use his range, he can be very nasty. But if he just has an off night, which he does tend to have, he just kind of lets the other person get the win. But I'm hoping that on Saturday night he's going to be on, and so I do have him for KO round 2. Now the co-main, Mackenzie Dern versus Jillian Robertson. I think this is going to be low-key a banger. Why? Because Mackenzie Dern has that charge forward retard type of fighting style. Like, she just literally puts her head forward at times and just charges in, throwing flurries of punches. And I like that about her. I like that she isn't a women fighter that's fighting her own shadow. And she actually tries to go in there and make it nasty. What's even more beautiful is that both Mackenzie Dern and Jillian Robertson have very technical jiu-jitsu. Something tells me that Jillian Robertson has more crafty submissions than Mackenzie Dern, just off the top of my head, in my memory. But I would be interested in seeing how the scrambles would end up. I could see this going two ways. It either goes Mackenzie Dern just bulldozes and wins by a decision, or I could see Jillian Robertson whipping out some kind of submission that she catches Dern in and ends up submitting her. So I'm gonna just do a iffy prediction and just go Robertson submission round 2. And the main attraction, the one that everyone is waiting for, what everyone wants to see this dude get beat down, because he is the cringiest. It's one thing to be like, I'm the best, and if you want to hate me, that's fine. Like, I don't know. There's something about him where it's like he just can't help himself but be annoying and cringy, to the point where Makhachev literally had to tell him, even when he was praising him in the press conference, he had to tell him to shut up because he was interrupting. He was interrupting him with praises. Like, bro, just chill. And it makes it worse that he's unironically just insufferable. Like, at least put some irony into it. And I hate his face he makes, man. Every time he talks, he has to have this sneer. He's like, yeah, and if you want to think that he's like smiling the entire time. Anyway, with the fight, just looking at Islam Makhachev's record, bro, 28-1, and the people he's beat and the way he's beaten them, he is nasty. Whereas Ian Machado Garry, and there's this thing right now, dude, he started the discourse. He's like, look at my last 5 opponents, and now look at Islam's. Mine are just harder. I will give him credit. Yeah, it's a good list. Carlos Prates, you got Muhammad, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Like, those are, it's good. But the thing is, the last, I don't even know how many fights of his have all gone to decision. Even versus Michael Bennett Page, and I was kind of disappointed with that fight, to be honest. But when you compare the two, Islam is just a finisher, whereas you are the total opposite. You're a decision fighter. And I think it's going to end up being Brian Ortega versus Alexander Volkanovski. Now, Alexander Volkanovski absolutely dominated, as he usually does, versus Brian Ortega, as he usually does against all of his opponents. But the difference is, Brian Ortega had a grappler's chance, right? It's not a puncher's chance, it's a grappler's chance. And so, as much as I hate to say it, I think Ian Machado Garry does have a grappler's chance. Why? Because we know that Islam is going to be, everyone knows the Dagestan's game plan, right? You have good stand-up, and then they go for the takedown. Now, how they go into there, Islam has really good trips. I can see Islam kind of just timing his takedowns. Ian Garry's really long limbs, like he's just going to be able to get in the inside of those long limbs pretty easily. The tricky part is where once he gets him down or they get into clinch positions, Ian Garry could pull off some crafty choke and get close to it, or in a very Hail Mary chance, in the rare chance, get a Hail Mary submission. And it's kind of like Brian Ortega versus Alexander Volkanovski. Why? Because Brian Ortega sucks, but he did almost get a mounted guillotine on Alex Volkanovski, one of the GOATs, one of the best of all time. Why? Because they have a grappler's chance. Those submissions, you got Bryce Mitchell versus, I'm forgetting his name, but he got the ninja choke on Bryce Mitchell. So if he sets up and they train for like a submission to where, okay, if he gets me here, I'm going to choke him. If he gets me here, I'm going to go for a leg lock. And I could see something happening like that. And it's going to be one of the biggest upsets, right? I'm talking like Juliana Pena type upsets. But there is a possibility that could happen. I think it's going to end up going to the later rounds just because Ian Garry is a decision fighter, or a distance fighter and a decision fighter. But he is, it's going to go similarly, I believe, to how Alex Volkanovski and Brian Ortega went, right? Because you have the grappler who has all these crafty things. He keeps going for submissions, but he gets dominated for the most part the entire time. Now, this is Makhachev's second fight at welterweight. He went to decision versus Della Maddalena, JDM. And to me, that tells us something. And that tells us that, one, he was kind of adjusting to the weight, but also these guys are bigger. Like, it's not as easy for him to submit his opponents. And so he did say that in the press conference, yes, I'm going to try and get the submission this time, to get the finish this time. But I don't think it's going to be easy versus someone like Ian Machado Garry. I don't know why, but I'm seeing guillotine. I'm just seeing like a mounted guillotine type of thing, or a mounted like triangle type of situation. Something for mount. I don't think that Ian Garry is going to even want to go to north-south type of position to where he can even get that arm in and then get the darce, as he always does. Sees him getting a submission somehow that way, late round 5 or decision. That's my official prediction. Other than that, I would be surprised if it goes any other way, but my most for sure thing is I think it is going to be a long fight for both of them. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a disappointment to the masses, to the public, right? Because we have seen now Sean Strickland versus Hamzat, and it was underwhelming. Ian Garry makes the fights stylistically boring, if that makes sense. And so I think it's going to be a long fight. And so, yeah, I think it's going to go to the either decision or submission round 5 for Makhachev. That is my predictions for Saturday night. We'll see how right or wrong I am.